Beyond the story unfolds the way BTS tells their story in their music. It's a three-act exposition ending with a resolution, open for a continuation. There's always a narrative to their work, a rhythm to their elucidations, and poetry between their lines. The first chapter was a perfect setup to the eight most important personalities that will form the legend of BTS. There's Jin, Suga, J-Hope, RM, Jimin, V, Jungkook, and BTS. The seven boys were first introduced in the context of their pilgrimage towards Big Hit. The journey to Big Hit was epiphanous to their journey towards BTS. It was wildly different and subconsciously funny, but they also share some eerie commonalities that circumstantially prove they have always been destined to share experiences. There's Suga and Jin, who were both tricked into joining Big Hit. Suga was promised that he was going to join a hip-hop group, while Jin was promised he was going to be an actor. Then there's Jin and J-Hope, who both were trained outside the company before moving into their dormitory. There's J-Hope and Jimin, who were both dancers, but were immersed to become a rapper and vocalist respectively. There's Jimin and V, who were both cheated by their taxi drivers on their way to the dormitory. And then V and Jungkook both didn't expect to debut. The whole chapter is actually riddled with connections, like a purple string of fate, pulling them closer and closer together. But even as they uncover the chaotic beginnings of their musical and professional consciousness, there is a beautiful rhythm and beat to their storytelling. It's as if learning about their story is an adventure and a discovery rather than a languid afternoon session of oral narrative. You start with a high, with J-Hope getting frustrated after failing to find their dorm. And then the beat goes down to something languid as it shifts to Suga as he recalls the times that he spent with his old group in Daegu as a producer. Before you get pulled in by something relaxing by Jin as he recalls his valiant effort to maintain some semblance of normalcy in BTS. This book is more a trip. A fun, melancholic, frustrating, exciting, and insightful crusade to find the pieces of a puzzle so you can better appreciate and understand the real value of the legend of BTS and the seven people who made it. Hi! Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification button. I would really appreciate it. If you haven't done so, please share the video. Share it with your friends. Tell your friends about it. If you are doing it, please continue doing it because it does help my channel. Okay, now onto the video. Beyond the story, she is a weapon of mass destruction, but she's also a gem. I think my only regret is that there's so much chatter on Twitter and other social media about a certain part of the book where BTS actually talked about about their bad experiences. Basically, there were some people who hurt them, ignored them, bullied them, and that's an important part of their journey. But I think that is the reason they shared it is not so we can hate on other people, but to see the totality of their experience and see how those ugly things actually created beautiful learnings that they decided to live by. I think that's why they included it in the book. Unfortunately, those are the things that are getting highlighted. There's so much in here. It's 500 pages of liquid gold. I hope we can share the beautiful things and the beautiful insights and the beautiful learning. Okay, let's continue the video. The opening is a clue to the book's ending. The opening sets the tone for the book. It forms the shape of the journey BTS took. It opened by describing Big Hit's office, a small building in the middle of Gangnam, one of the most popular and populous areas in Seoul. You would think that it would be easy to find, but it is everything but. There are many ways to get there, but none seems easy. Much like the dreams of BTS had for themselves and for the group. Being a musician, or an idol in particular, is a glamorous job. Very much desired. They are as visible as the sky, and yet so many get lost on their way there. And even more, never actually make it at all. J-Hope got so frustrated after circling the area several times. Jimin and V had to take a cab just to get there, and both ended up getting cheated by their taxi driver. But it was also the way they described what would be their home for several years. It felt like they were describing a shattered vision of a city rather than the heart of a city. The path was steep, the crowd was faceless, and the spaces suffocating. It was as if they were declaring early on that this was to be the world of BTS. And that even when BTS manages to leave for a bigger place, a bigger city, a bigger office, and a bigger home, this world will never leave them. Importance of numbers and critical analysis. It's so easy to romanticize anything that's beautiful. Many believe that skill and talent are all that an artist needs to make it big. While those are important, it is equally important to know the trends, to know the market, to know the opportunities, know how you get to your desired destination. There's a lot of business in it. While music is art, selling songs, CDs, concerts, and merch is not. Bang Shi-hyuk proved himself to be a strategic businessman. He studied 20 years of trends, analyzed the velocity of music evolution, and examined the position of K-pop against the larger global pop backdrop. It helped shape the mold that BTS will use in shaping their sound and identity. Without those geekiness, without the numbers, without the research and analysis, BTS would have had a harder time or not make it at all. BTS trades in two currencies, music and words. BTS is one of the very few groups in the world where every member is articulate and eloquent. That is why it is very easy to create BTS contents. They are all intelligent, intellectually and emotionally. And even better, they know how to translate their ideas, thoughts, and emotions into words that people can understand. What a gem. The amount and quality of content that Big Hit produces about and for BTS is only possible because they have 7 people who each cover both ends. It shouldn't be surprising though, BTS's songs are some of the most lyrically superior in the world. Music and words are their currencies. That is why they are very intentional with their words, in songs or when talking. The respect that they have for the language is in full display here. They eloquently describe their condition, observation, and situation. Rap Den. J-Hope describes their dorm. He didn't just provide the readers a visual image of their dorm. He seemed to have constructed the whole dorm around the reader in just 2 words. A certain feeling of comfort, RM said about his hometown Ilsan. There's a little of that city gray and bored faces of pedestrians, but there are no tall buildings or big corporate offices, which makes the sky easier to see. With that, he didn't just paint a picture of a homey town, but made the feeling of peace visible to readers. I do like to try different things. I figured I'd be able to have a variety of experiences if I were an idol and an actor at the same time. Reality had other plans, Jin said, describing how initially expected to be an actor while being an idol. Jin managed to communicate the deconstruction of his dream to give way to the beautiful alternative without actually describing it. For a writer like me, It's exhilarating to hear and see how delicate they are with words. I've never seen anyone in this generation respect words the way that they do. They understand the world through the spaces between them. It was almost so magical when I was reading the book. They seemed to be each other's anchor, that when they needed to understand themselves, they tried to understand another. V, for example, didn't understand the why Jimin was so eager to debut. And it wasn't until he actually experienced the passion of Jimin did he actually understand why Jimin was eager to debut. And in the process, he was able to find his place in the midst of the chaos because he was just a different person. He wanted to debut, but he wasn't stressing himself for it. So it wasn't until he actually positioned himself in the environment, in the circle of Jimin, did he understand and empathize that, okay, now I get you. And then in there, he was able to find himself where he should be. Jin is another example. When he got to the dorm the first time, he was trying to find himself, his own place. The first thing that he did was look at other people and find out what it was that they needed, but they couldn't get. And food was it. He realized that no one was actually eating properly, and Suga specifically mentioned was he just ate to live. But it also came to a point where even that was a chore for Suga, that he just decided he was going to blend everything together. And so he decided, okay, he was going to take that on. And Jungkook himself made the decision to actually come to BTS and Big Hit because of RM. That actually came into full fruition towards the end of chapter 1 when they were told that, okay, you're going to debut. This is the final lineup. They came together, and the first thing that they did was express their dreams and then ask the other members, what about you? So the rhythm that they established actually worked in the end, because that's when they needed the each members, this group, to become a team. And they tried to sort of look for that intersection where all 7 lines will cross, and they found it. And they found it by looking at each other, by understanding one another. The in-between. While Chapter 1 undoubtedly laid down the foundation of their legends, it was surprising that they didn't take the narrative to highlight each of the members' strengths and weaknesses. If the book was to build up how BTS became the legends that they are now, I was expecting that they will at least lay down the foundation of their artistry. But they didn't. Instead, they dealt with the mundane, the everyday. It was the ordinary that they communicated. Jimin talking about the scattered shoes on the foyer, V bonding with everyone through food, Jin assigning chores to people, RM describing his commute from Seoul to Ilsan and back. It was a little disarming and to a certain extent humbling as a reader to be handed reality when you're expecting mythology. This didn't make sense until I was actually farther into the book. It was when they forced me to reflect on what it is about the people that I love that leaves the biggest mark on me. It is rarely the big things. It's always the seemingly insignificant things that I take with me forever. It's that weird way your friend shuffles their feet when they are excited. That weird sauce mixture that your sister loves putting on everything fried. That irritating way your mom keeps on putting too much sugar on your coffee. That neighbor who seems to be determined to feed you all the avocado on their tree. It's always the in-between that leaves a mark. The in-between that explains a lot. And farther into the book, once they start talking about their struggles and their victories, I realized that much of the explanation on how they actually made it through was in the small details of life they cared to share in the beginning. No one cared. Perhaps one of the most powerful and humbling insights in the book is when Jimin reflected on the frustrations that he felt when his position in BTS was in limbo. I had given up a perfectly good life learning dance in high school to come to Seoul, but no one cares. Count on BTS to concretize a universal but unspoken experience. Your risks are your own, and you cannot ever count on other people for support. No one cares about the life that you left behind or the potential that you have inside until it becomes a reality. Jimin realized that early. If he wants to succeed in his dreams, he can't count on the generosity of others. He simply needs to be good enough to take it for himself. Students of life and art. One of the reasons BTS keeps on improving is their tenacity for studying. They have and still are students of art and life. The first thing anyone does once they enter the dorm is to study. RM, Suga, and J-Hope took their time to immerse the vocal line in hip-hop and other music. For the rap line, it wasn't enough that the vocal line is going to join them on stage. They had to understand the art they were performing. But instead of treating it as a chore, it actually became their disposition. Each of the BTS members became a student. They kept on studying and they kept on learning. They learned from each other, they learned from their seniors, they learned from new experiences, they learned from their pain. In fact, when they were going through a hard time and when they were on the brink of a breakup, instead of they reverted back to studying instead of rebelling. They studied new music, they studied new choreography. They revealed that they were actually in the middle of finishing their album when they were going through a hard time. But once they went to the studio and to rehearsal studio, they actually found it very easy. It's as if they knew that the passion that they had for their art was actually going to bind them together. They studied their options. Jin specifically thought about what he was going to do if the group breaks up, and he felt like he wasn't interested in being in another group, and certainly probably not interested in being in the entertainment industry anymore. And they studied each other instead of just focusing on themselves. This was very evident when Jimin went to look for Jungkook and Jimin found Jungkook drinking alone. They studied their history. They went back and tried to understand what it was that made them want to do this in the first place, and what it was that they experienced that is making them want to quit. When you are willingly studying, you're actually putting yourself in the position of humility. And if you are actually really going to study, that will result to wisdom. And that's what they got. Wisdom in their art and a better understanding of who they are, who they were, and who they want to become as a group and as individuals. Malleability. BTS was asked why no one ended up quitting. Jin credits it to their willingness to adjust. They are all so different as people, and their ambitions are even more different. But they all managed to come together and work on the same dream because they were all willing to adjust. RM said, they're just good people. Very good people. I think they are both right. I have always viewed them as pieces of a puzzle, fitting together so perfectly to form a picture grander and greater than they can ever be as individual pieces. But right off the first chapter, I realized I was actually wrong. They weren't pieces of a puzzle, but more like a clay, forever malleable so they can keep on adjusting themselves to perfectly fit each other as they all evolve and move on and grow. And that takes some strong character for someone to be willing to put the team first and still have the consciousness that they will not lose themselves in the process. Worlds colliding. If you really read between the line and try to really understand the things that they're saying, you would realize that they were everything that was wrong for each other. They seem to have nothing in common. It was like a perfect recipe for disaster. You have Suga, J-Hope, Jimin, and RM who were so bent on debuting, and then you have Jin, V, and Jungkook who thought that they weren't trained, they weren't in the program long enough for them to debut. You have Jin who wanted some semblance of normalcy, Suga who didn't even want to eat, and V who just wanted to eat. And then you have Jungkook who just wanted to be a schoolless RM. But I think what was important is that the three pillars, the three members, most senior members, RM, Suga, and J-Hope, knew that they can ground the team and bond the team with music. And I think that was really very important. From the very beginning, they knew that the one thing that will keep them going, that will get them started and will keep them going, is music. And so that's what they used to bond with the rest of the members, and that's what they used to bond the entire team. And it really was the strongest foundation they can ever hope for, because 8 years later, when their resolve was getting tested, when they were on the brink of quitting, it was music that was going to save them. It's such a beautiful book. It's such a beautiful book. So I really would love to hear your thoughts. Obviously, I'm just going to review each chapter. But I would love your thoughts. I would love your contribution. I'm willing to do a Twitter space or maybe a YouTube live. Let me know if you want to have like an open discussion. You can leave your comments in the comment section below. You can also, if you want to converse with me directly, please do so in any of the social media links that you see on your screen right now. The next part is going to be aired probably Friday or Saturday or whatever. Okay, but yeah, probably Thursday. All right, so please don't forget to like, subscribe, and click that notification bell. And of course, share the video if you can. Happy reading!